Angel Reese has become a meme. She's become a joke. People are literally placing bets and making videos about Angel Reese missing her first shot of the game. Content creators are putting together compilations of her missed layups. Angel Reese reminds me of one of those dead-end comedy gimmicks in WWE.
For this outfit, which begs the question, does Angel Reese put in more time in her outfits for the pre-game catwalk, or does she put in more time?
She did a lot of this to herself too, but she was doing all that talking without the ability to back it up on the court. And once she got exposed, it was over. Once the time for talking expired and it was time to perform, Angel Reese could not step up. And that mythical streak of double-doubles last season, that did not do her any favor.
You tuned in expecting fireworks. The promos were everywhere. ESPN banners, WNBA Twitter, YouTube thumbnails screaming, the rematch. You thought this would be the showdown. Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark. A rivalry born in March Madness, sharpened in the pros. Fire and ice, swagger and silence. Two rookies dragging the league into a new era of spotlight. But then,
Angel Reese trying to convince us that she is a star. She is the reason that normal people are watching pretend basketball. And if you don't believe her, just listen to her pretend friends in the mainstream media. So-called analysts like Monica McDougal at ESPN or Nancy Armour at USA Today.
Caitlin Clark wasn't even on the court. Not because of foul trouble, not because of ejection. She just wasn't playing. A scratch. Rested. Benched. And suddenly the bright lights felt colder. The weight shifted. You thought maybe that meant Angel would rise, that finally she'd own the stage without the ghost of Clark lurking beside her. But instead, what unfolded was something nobody expected. This wasn't domination.
Comes up with these stats. I know people were saying, oh, she's like more like Denise Rodman. Oh, she's like Dennis Rodman of the WNBA, more like Denise Rodman of the WNBA. Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky scored the lowest points since 2011. Fifth.
It was exposure. The game tipped off, and the rhythm never belonged to Chicago. Indiana, without their star, without their head coach, without the noise, looked surgical. The Sky? Lost, staggered, like they'd built a game plan to stop Caitlin Clark, only to forget that the Fever had 10 other weapons still locked and loaded. Angel looked hesitant, then rattled, then haunted. And as the quarter closed, you could feel it. The internet was already typing. Clips were already getting clipped. Because you knew the cameras were watching for one thing. Not just who scored, but who didn't. And what do you do?
Unfortunately, we can't really ask Christine. She's not allowed to cover the dump anymore because she had the audacity to ask about the racial bias towards Caitlin Clark. I think USA Today has her covering darts, maybe cornhole. Whatever she's doing, it's a hell of a lot better than covering the WNBA and pretending there is polish left on this turd.
When your biggest opportunity to silence the noise becomes the loudest silence of all, this was supposed to be a statement game. Instead, it turned into a story of absence. Because sometimes, the scariest thing isn't when your rival beats you face to face. It's when they don't have to. Caitlin Clark wasn't even in the arena, but her shadow was. Watching, laughing, unbothered, and Angel Reese? She had the stage all to herself, and that stage collapsed. You step onto the court, cameras flashing, knowing millions are watching, not just for the game, but for you. And this was your moment, right? The one you circled when the schedule dropped. The one every headline whispered about. No Caitlin Clark, no excuses. The lights are yours now. Time to remind the world why you were the talk of LSU. Why they called you Bayou Barbie. Why you were born for pressure. But something's off. The first miss, just a little short. No big deal. The second, maybe nerves. You still hold your head high, but the rhythm never comes. Each trip down the floor feels heavier. The rim shrinks, the eyes widen, and that voice in the back of your mind, it's getting louder. Angel Reese finished the game with 0 field goals. Let that sink in. Double-double machine.
Uncle KC tries to diagnose the problems, but I'm a critic. I'm not a former player. I don't watch Angel Reese to analyze. I watch to laugh my ass off. It never gets old watching her unathletically throw her arms around and airball a helicopter layup. I'm good at making fun of the WNBA.
Silent. A player known for putbacks and second chance hustle, suddenly a ghost on offense. Not a single made shot, not one. The box score reads like a cruel joke. Minutes played, fouls drawn, rebounds gathered, but points? A void. And the internet doesn't forgive voids, especially not when they come wrapped in swagger and gold lashes. This wasn't just a bad night. It was the kind of night that becomes evidence in the court of public opinion. The kind of stat line that trolls frame and hang like art. The kind of moment that slips into YouTube thumbnails with red arrows and the word exposed in all caps. But maybe the worst part wasn't the stat line. Maybe it was the look in your eyes. The moment the cameras caught you. Quiet, not angry. Not defiant, just empty. As if even you didn't recognize the player you were that night, because sometimes the hardest part isn't missing shots. It's knowing you had every reason to shine, and didn't.
Smelly told Candace Parker that she wanted to have a basketball conversation about Angel Reese. Let's stop pretending she's a star, and I want you to tell me why she is the worst player in a league filled with bad players, and if there's any hope that Angel Reese could ever be a true rotational player. Not a starter, just part of the rotation, part of the team.
And while the game clock kept ticking, the takes were already flying. People weren't just reacting to your performance. They were rewriting your narrative. You look across the court and expect resistance. You expect noise. You expect Caitlin Clark, her stare, her smirk, her swagger. You expect Christy Sides, barking commands, drawing up the final play, riding the refs like a storm. You expect the full force of the Indiana fever. But instead, there's a quiet, no Caitlin, no Sophie, no head coach, and that's when it hits you. This isn't going to be a fight, it's going to be a statement, because now the script flips. You're not the underdog anymore. You're the one with everything to prove, and nothing in your way. So what happens when the enemy gate is left wide open, and you still can't break through? The Fever walked in wounded. They had every excuse to lose, missing their number 1 pick, their vocal leader, and the veteran enforcer who sets the tone. They were supposed to fold, but they didn't. Instead, they played free, loose. And maybe that's the worst part. They didn't need Caitlin Clark to beat Angel Reese. They didn't need a coach yelling on the sideline. They just needed belief. And while Angel looked for rhythm, Indiana ran the floor like they owned it. Ball movement like poetry. Cuts that turned defenders into statues. And the scoreboard? It told the story with brutal honesty. Because when you lose to a team without its stars, you can't point fingers anymore. You can't say, they had Caitlin. You can't say, that coach got in the refs' heads. You're left with one. Truth, they wanted it more. They executed better. They showed up when it counted. And you? You had every reason to make headlines. You just ended up in them for the wrong reasons. This wasn't just a loss. It was a test. And whether you like it or not, the world just saw your grade. You think the worst part of a game like this is the scoreboard, the missed shots, the bad rotations, the highlights that never happened. But no. The moment that broke you didn't come with a buzzer. It came with a camera. Midway through the third quarter, the camera pans to Caitlin Clark. Not in uniform, not even on the bench. Just watching. From the tunnel, hair tied back, hoodie on, arms crossed. Smiling, not cocky, not loud, just still. And that's when it hit everyone watching. Caitlin Clark didn't need to play to win. She didn't need to say anything to speak volumes. Because there she was, the face of the league, doing nothing at all, while Angel Reese melted under the lights. The moment went viral in seconds. Clips hit Twitter. TikTok slowed it down like it was poetry. Caitlin Clark silently watching Angel Reese implode, the captions read. Millions of views before the fourth quarter even ended, and here's the cruel twist. It wasn't even meant to be shady. Clark wasn't taunting, she was just observing. But in sports, silence can echo louder than trash talk. Because what people saw wasn't just a player on the sidelines, they saw a queen on her throne watching the chaos below. And you were in that chaos. You were supposed to be the storm, the villain, the one who lives for the hate, feeds off the noise, and turns pressure into production. But in that moment, all that noise turned inward, and something cracked. Your posture changed. The bounce left your step. You weren't calling for the ball. You were hiding from it, because no amount of college trophies or TikTok edits could shield you from the truth. You were losing, on your own, while your rival stood still, and somehow still won. And now, that moment is frozen in digital history, not because of a block, not because of a bucket, but because sometimes the most devastating play doesn't happen on the court. It happens when the world watches you lose. And your rival doesn't even have to lift a finger. You hear it before you see it. The buzz, the mentions, the heat crawling up your spine as your phone lights up like a scoreboard of shame. You don't even have to open the app. You already know, because when you fall under the lights, the internet doesn't wait for the press conference. It becomes the press conference. Tweets came fast. Angel Reese got cooked by air. Caitlin Clark dominated from the tunnel. That's GOAT behavior. Imagine letting a Clarkless fever clown you on national TV. And then came the memes. Split screens of Reese's scoreless night beside Caitlin's relaxed smirk. TikTok edits with sad violin music. Reddit threads titled, Reese is who we thought she was. You knew this would happen. But knowing doesn't. Soften the sting, because they're not just clowning your stat line. They're clowning you, your attitude, your branding, your confidence. Everything you used to armor yourself on this journey, they're ripping it apart one retweet at a time. And here's the worst part. You gave them the ammo. Because when you call yourself unapologetically me, the world doesn't just cheer when you rise. They wait for you to fall. And when you finally do, they turn your silence into punchlines, your stillness into proof, your off night into a viral thread that will outlive the game itself. This is the new arena, where legacies are debated under TikTok comments, where careers rise and fall in YouTube thumbnails, where a smile from the tunnel burns more than a buzzer beater, and you, Angel, just became content. Because the internet doesn't care about context, it cares about moments, and you just gave them one. So while your fans are still posting she'll bounce back, the rest of the world already moved on, scrolling past the wreckage, laughing, in 15-second loops, adding another L to the feed. And the worst part, you'll see it again tomorrow, and the day after that, until you write a new headline. But tonight, this one's yours. You can ignore the noise. You can mute the tweets, block the memes, log off the apps, but you can't escape the box score. Because when the jokes fade and the hashtags move on, what's left is the cold, unfiltered truth. Numbers. That don't blink, don't lie, don't care how you feel, and the numbers, they hurt more than anything trending. Angel Reese, 2 points, 1 for 7 from the field, fouled out, 21 plus minus, 0 impact. This isn't just a bad night, this is a receipt. A ledger of missed layups, broken plays, and defensive lapses, all tallied with precision and posted for the world to see. Meanwhile, Indiana, they didn't just win, they dismantled. Nalissa Smith had 17 and 9. Kelsey Mitchell, ice in her veins. Aaliyah Boston, quiet, efficient dominance. Every Fever player moved like they had something to prove. And maybe they did. Maybe this wasn't just a game. Maybe it was a message. Because if your squad can hum without its stars, what does that say about yours? When fully loaded, and when the story gets passed down, people won't quote the tweets. They'll quote the numbers. They'll say, remember when Angel Reese only scored 2? They'll forget the missed calls, the fatigue, the pressure, the lights but the stats. They'll still be there, like a scar on the season. You once said numbers don't define you. And maybe that's true. But in this league, stats frame the narrative. They become the headline, the lower third on ESPN, the footnote to your hype reel, and tonight the frame is cracked. Because all that confidence, all that talk, all that "I'm built for this," it has to be backed up, not in interviews, not in Instagram captions, on the court. And tonight, the court told a story you didn't want to hear. A story measured in missed shots, logged in minutes, you'll wish you could get back, and etched into a stat line that says, you weren't ready. You came into the league with the heat of 1,000 spotlights. Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark. It wasn't just a matchup. It was a movement. A rivalry sculpted by clicks, by culture wars, by college-era revenge arcs and viral quotes that refused to die. You were supposed to be the foil, the fire, the attitude that shook the system. But rivalries only hold power if they stay competitive. And right now, this isn't a rivalry. It's a reckoning. Because for every dig, every side-eye, every bold claim about being unapologetically you, the court has delivered an answer. And lately, that answer's been harsh. This game wasn't just a stumble, it was a recalibration. A mirror held up to the narrative you built, and the reality trying to tear it down. Because for all the talk of main character energy, you forgot something crucial. Main characters still need arcs. They need growth, conflict, redemption. And maybe humility. Clark's silence is cutting because it's earned. It doesn't just come from hype, it comes from results. Meanwhile, your voice is starting to echo. Louder than your game, louder than your presence, louder than your impact. And that's the danger. Because in this league, hype has an expiration date. Eventually, you either evolve or you evaporate. And the fans? They can feel the shift. They've gone from Reese is her to Reese better figure it out. From highlight reels to turnover compilations, from rallying behind you to waiting for you to prove them wrong. So here you are, still standing, still loud, still you. But if this rivalry is going to mean anything moving forward, you have to make it real again, on the court, in the numbers, through the work. Because right now, it's not Angel versus Caitlin. It's Angel versus expectations. And that opponent doesn't play fair, doesn't wait, doesn't care what you said last week, only what you'll do next. You don't get many chances to define yourself in public. Not when the lights are this bright. Not when the cameras catch everything. The missed layups, the body language, the tweet you almost posted but deleted at the last second. This isn't college anymore. This is the W, and in the WNBA, there's no space for illusions. Legends are built here. And legacies? They're shaped in games just like this, the ugly ones, the quiet ones, the ones that leave you staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. wondering what the hell just happened. You felt the weight, the comparisons, the you versus her that's been fed to the algorithm like oxygen. But the truth is, the league is bigger than your feud, and the league is watching. Veterans who fought for this space with blood and bruises. Rookies trying to follow your lead. Owners, sponsors, analysts, fans, haters, everyone's tuned in. Not to see you talk, but to see if you respond. Because every era in basketball has its turning point. And this game, it might be yours. This isn't just about a bad stat line or one embarrassing loss. It's about how you rewrite your narrative when it stops working for you. Will you evolve your game or protect your brand? Will you lean into discipline or double down on defiance? Because in 5 years, this game won't just live in a box score or a thread of memes. It'll be part of your origin story, and people will either say, this is where she cracked, or this is where she changed. You get to choose, because the WNBA doesn't just remember the triumphs. It remembers who showed up when everything was falling apart. And if you listen closely, you can already hear history turning its page. Waiting to see what name gets written next.